What we have is the head of a newly founded EOS Foundation. This is a new organization that is separate from Block.one, the actual firm that helped stand up EOS. And the guy whose name is Yves says that EOS so far is a failure, basically, that the token has been a terrible investment. And he basically says that there's been a lack of leadership. And there's a lot to be said about that particular point. And the EOS has genuinely been a terrible performer, and kind of has. I think I've been, pretty guilty of this. EOS has been a bit of a whipping boy over the last few years, as it has totally underperformed the rest of the sector. And now we have this new organization that wants to turn that around, wants to do something different, and as a way to kick off that effort is basically going guns blazing on the founders and the people who have been responsible for the project for the last few years. I don't know how deep everybody is on EOS or the entire weird complexity of the EOS saga, but Zach, is this something you want to weigh in on?
Sure, yeah. I mean, EOS is perhaps most famous for being the blockchain that raised the largest ICO of the ICO era. So Block.one had a year-long ICO. It raised something like $4.1 billion to build the software that powers the EOS blockchain, EOS.io. To Block.one's credit, they delivered that software. They got the chain up and running, but there's been problems along the way as it relates to governance of this chain and whether or not people are using it in the wild. So as you mentioned, David, this is a relatively new organization who is looking to sort of spearhead some community movement behind getting things going again in a way that is amenable to some of these early investors in this project. And this, I think, is just sort of a bit of a mission statement. This was a leaked prepared remarks delivered to a private event in China, I believe, to about 120 individuals who were looking for a new path forward for the EOS blockchain. So interesting to see. There's definitely a lot of twists and turns in the saga of EOS and Block.one. Block.one notably is sort of concentrating its efforts on Bullish, which is a yet to launch crypto exchange that's going to be run partially on the EOS blockchain. That's a project that actually is going public through a SPAC deal, even though it's not yet launched, to my knowledge. The SPAC deal values Bullish at $9 billion.
Amazing.
I think in part because it's been seeded with a lot of the Bitcoin holdings that were generated in that really huge ICO way back in 2018. So lots to unpack here, and definitely the backstory is super interesting, a bit contentious, but also interesting to see that there is some renewed interest in blazing a path forward that hadn't previously been articulated before. So this is an interesting one.
Yeah, this is kind of sorry, go ahead, Jen. I saw you.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just jump in really quick and pass it off to you. I think this just goes to show that no matter how much money gets pumped into a token sale, an ICO, or via VCs into a company, it doesn't mean that it's going to succeed, just to the point that we unpacked at the beginning of the show. It doesn't mean that there are not problems behind the scenes. So it brings us back to that education standpoint. Like, if you are going to invest your own money into a project, especially in the crypto space, to really, maybe take some points from big raises, but always do your own research. But Naomi, off to you.
Yeah, this seems like a giant power play. So if we dive into this, and there's accusations of fraud, misrepresentations of the capabilities of the Block.one team, and then you have this person who's the CEO of this very recently formed EOS Foundation. I believe it was announced in August. And there are things said like, the speech places the blame on Block.one, going so far as to allege potential crimes. In speech, LaRose says he hopes the fairly new EOS Foundation will be able to take narrative and branding control over the project in order to counteract the disarray of decentralization. And then it ends with LaRose staking a definitive claim to leadership over the project, saying, "I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to do a job. What we've been lacking in EOS is leadership, someone who will lead by example and show up every single day working towards greatness for us all." Just some very interesting and very bold statements there. He also says that the EOS Foundation is set to step up as the project can no longer rely on the Virginia-based software company for guidance, referring to Block.one. So it really seems like someone's coming in, they're very unhappy with EOS, sets up a foundation and says, listen, I'm taking control. I mean, the difficulty with this is that Block.one has all the capital. So they raised all of the money. They have all of that they're putting towards developments. And LaRose is saying, yeah, we're going to, be distributing grants. We've got a roadmap. We're doing all this stuff. Are they expecting Block.one to just hand over that capital? Are they expecting to do like another ICO? Like what is the play here in order to get that capital that can be distributed? Because I believe the foundation doesn't currently have that. So just a very interesting situation for someone with very little control over this project, very little power to come in, basically claim it, and then make promises without really having much leverage there. So it's interesting to see which direction this will go in. But Zach, I'll throw to you first and then throw it back to David.
I see David wanted to go in, so I will.
Yeah, sorry. I'm making all these noises because I have so many feelings and thoughts about EOS, and
I'm doing them in real life.
I'm like, oh, okay. So the 2 points to start off with here. One is, and I wish I had thought to get this graphic mocked up beforehand, but if you look at the EOS chart, it is tragic. It is up in 2018, down, and then flat. Just nothing. Flat as a desert, you might say. And so you can understand where, even though this is a recently founded organization, you can understand why people want to hear this from somebody, because as an investment, this project is a dog. And when we talk about leadership, it's really important to put it in context. Brendan Bloomer is the CEO of Block.one, seems like a competent administrator, but the real figurehead of EOS at the start was this guy named Dan Larimer. He was the technological builder. And Larimer, before EOS, had also founded first a thing called BitShares, which I could talk about for hours. After that, he founded something called Steam. And in each case, he eventually stepped away from the project. And not eventually, sometimes rather rapidly. Now, what's interesting here is that we talk in blockchain world about decentralization and about how everybody is going to have a hand in building these ecosystems. But one thing that I think we can take away from the EOS case is there is an important factor here for people who can be figureheads and leaders. And EOS, and before it Steam, really had a vacuum in leadership because this guy who wanted to build the technology then didn't really follow through in terms of guiding people towards building what he had in mind. And now to have Block.one pivot again away from this blockchain that they built, they raised a bunch of money on, to go and raise a $9 billion basically pre-sale for an exchange that doesn't work yet. I mean, it rhymes, right? It's weird. And so I think that we do have to look at, well, we can learn some examples by contrast, right? That Ethereum, whether you think of him as a leader or not, at least has a very strong figurehead in Vitalik, who has really been engaged with the discussion around how that ecosystem grows. And it is an important factor in the valuation and the growth and development of these sorts of ecosystems. So we shouldn't delude ourselves that we live in some kind of leaderless world where we don't need people who can provide examples and provide a path. I don't know, Zach and Naomi, you can flip a coin. Naomi?
Zach, you happy? I'll jump in just quickly and then throw to you. I will say, it's interesting. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dan Larimer. I really like his rhetoric. I know that he's been writing a book, and I'm very excited to read it. If it hasn't come out already, then it should be soon. He's always had this very decentralized mindset, and he's just a fantastic, he's a serial entrepreneur. A lot of people talk about him through this lens of, he just project hops and he never follows through, which I know isn't what you're saying. You're saying something different, David. But it's common rhetoric to hear about him. I would say that he went through and created some incredible innovation in the space. I mean, BitShares was the first ever decentralized exchange. He first kind of pioneered that technology. And then Steam was a game changer for content creators. I used it up until, I still use it, but obviously the team pivoted away and forked to create Hive because of the, there was a big controversy. We won't dive into that here. But, then Dan Larimer, when he left EOS, I wasn't surprised because I knew that he was very focused on decentralized social media. That's his big pet project right now. But it did make me worry about the future of EOS without Dan Larimer there. So I understand what you're saying about that need for inspiring figures to continue to push the project forward. That's never really been Dan's shtick. He is a technologist. He just loves building that tech. And he was probably hoping in the business partner of Brendan Bloomer to be that figurehead. And with the lawsuit, I mean, you haven't heard a peep out of Brendan. He's a lovely guy, but you kind of want to hear his point of view. But like EOS has refused to talk about anything related to EOS ever since they were subpoenaed by the SEC and were going through that settlement process. It's been very hard to get anything from them. And as soon as you get that vacuum in any sort of leadership or especially thought leadership, I really did see the effects that took on the community. So yeah, just very interesting. But I'll throw it back to you, Zach, for just final thoughts.
No, just an interesting one. I mean, it speaks to a lot of challenges of finding that balance between centralized leadership and decentralized ethos. And I think EOS remains a really interesting example for the space to watch.